So now we are on the chapter 14 of Bhagavad Gita, and this chapter is all about gunas. Krishna has already mentioned this many times in a different ways. In fact, in the last chapter he was talking about there are two fundamental entities. One is nature, Prakriti, another one is self, Purusha, and the interaction between them, right? And in the Prakriti he keeps saying Prakriti is the cause of all the actions, and the self is kind of the cause of all the pain and pleasure, right? He is experiencing all the pain and pleasure, and Prakriti is generating all these kind of experiences, right? Here he is going deeper into the Prakriti part, and he's saying Prakriti is basically made out of these three gunas: Tamas, Rajas, and Sattva, right? So let's see this chapter. Okay, so he's saying the nature is possible only by Sattva, Tamas and Rajas, three gunas, and because of these three gunas, because of these three qualities of nature, the self, which is free from the nature, get bounded to the nature, right? He's saying self get somehow the self which is completely free and liberated, which is our true nature, get bounded by these three qualities of gunas, which is being originated from the Prakriti, or Prakriti is being originated by these three gunas, right? And then he describes how the person gets binded by these three gunas. So he says, of these, Sattva, free from impurities, illuminating, free from all the disease, binds by attachment to happiness and knowledge, right? So he's saying the Sattva, the purest, balanced property of nature, that Sattva, when somebody is in that Sattva mode, or when Sattva property is dominated in the nature, a person, the self experience knowledge and happiness, right? He experienced clarity of thoughts and he experienced happiness, and that's how this self get attached to the nature, right? So he identify with these things. He identify with the knowledge and happiness, and because of that identification, because of that attachment, self which is free from the nature gets bounded to the nature. Yeah. Then he says, know that Rajas, by passion arising from thirst and attachment. So by passion, so Rajas, the quality of Rajas is the passion coming from the craving, right? This bind fast the self by attachment to the action, right? So when the Rajas guna is dominated, when somebody is experiencing this Rajas guna, so he's experiencing this drive, this ambitions, this craving, thirst or passion. These kind of experiences are, the self is having these kind of experiences, and he gets binded by action. This, this element of this action. I need to act. I need to, get this, find that, all these kind of stuff. So Rajas is more like that kind of a guna, and when it is there, self is bounded by the action. And when the tamas is born out of ignorance, which confuses the self, right? There is no happiness, there is no action, nothing, it's just pure ignorance. And this bind Arjuna with negligence, sleepiness and dullness, right? So he's saying when this tamas guna is dominated, when this tamas, the quality of tamas guna is in ignorance itself, right? So he said when the self is experiencing this tamas guna, in that he gets binded by confusion, nothing seems to be clear, right? So he gets binded by kind of confusion, dullness, lethargy, inertia, sleepiness, negligence, almost like a madness. So everything is unclear, everything is, in that way. In that way, the self get kind of bounded to the nature by the tamas guna. Okay. Then he says, Sattva causes attachment to the happiness, Rajas to the action, and Tamas cause the attachment to the negligence or ignorance, right? So the same thing. And then he says, sometime the Sattva becomes dominant, right? It's not like a person is Sattvic or person is Rajasic kind of thing. It's like sometime we experience the Sattva guna, right? When we are clear, when we feel, the sense of happiness, joy without any reason, or this clarity of thoughts, all these things. He's saying at that time Sattva is dominated, right? Then he's saying when the rajas is dominated, of course you are going to feel more passion and desire and all these kind of things. So, and sometimes tamas get dominated. So he say these things keep changing. Even throughout the day, these things keeps changing. Even throughout the experience of life, these things keeps changing on different stages. So these are just different experiences that keep coming, and one can be dominant on the other can be dominant on other. But it seems like one qualities is always dominated more as compared to other ones, right? Then when the light of the knowledge shines through all the gates of body, then it should be known that sattva is currently dominated. When you feel greedy undertaking of action, restlessness, desire, these these are born when the rajas is dominated. Darkness, inertia, heedlessness, confusion, these are born when the tamas is dominated. Same things he has talked before. Then he talks about the fruit of the action. So what happens when you act from the place when you are experiencing sattvic state of mind, right? So what happens when you act from that state of mind? When you act from that state of mind, the fruit of the action is pure. There's no impurity in that. So you're obviously going to feel peace and calm in a state of mind. When you're acting from that state of mind, from that, and this is from where Krishna is also asking Arjuna to act from the very beginning also. Right? When he's saying the act from the place of equanimity. Forget about this winning, losing, desire, loss and gain and pain and pleasure, these kind of desires. Instead of that, let them go altogether and learn to endure these things and then act from the place of equanimity. Because when you are acting from the place of equanimity, the fruit of the action will be purity. Simple, pure, peaceful will be the result of these kind of action. On the other hand, the fruit of rajasic action is pain. Right? So when we are acting from this greed, or when we are acting from restlessness, or when we are acting from this sense of desire to achieve so many things and this and that, it's not wrong or right, but the state of the mind is going to be stressful, right? And we can clearly see the state of mind in those moments are very stressful. There's a lot of pain, there's a lot of struggle, there's things are not, it's just like it's going to be the painful experience when you are acting from the state of mind which is going to be which is the rajasic state of mind, right? And the fruit of tamasic action is complete ignorance. So tamasic person is more like a numb, he's not feeling things, and it's like dark, kind of dark, numb space of mind, right? Confused. There's no sensitivity, right? So it's just like out of ignorance you do whatever you're doing, and whatever results are coming, it's just completely it's not a good state to be in, kind of a place, right? You're just not even aware, kind of a state. So these are the different actions, and these are the different fruits that come from the state of mind when you act from these different state of minds. He's keep repeating the same thing. From sattva, knowledge is born. From tamas, from rajas, desire and negligence and delusions are coming from tamas. And then, okay, so now he's saying, when the self perceives no doer other than the qualities, these three qualities, and knows that which is higher than the qualities, then he attains the self-realization, right? So he's basically saying, all the action that are happening right now are happening by these three different states, right? And the self which is experiencing all these three different states are getting bound and getting attached and getting identified by these three things, and there's within this somehow comes this sense of identity, or somehow comes this sense of doership, which is an ignorance, right? So he's saying once the self realize that I am not doing these actions, but these actions are being done by these three different qualities of nature, then the self is knows something higher than the qualities, and then he attains the self-realization, right? So this is a little bit tricky here, because for example, right now I am shooting this video, and there is a sense of doership, like I am creating this video. If I am not creating, then who is creating this video, right? So there is this sense of identity. There is a very clear sense of doership here. But what Krishna is saying is more like this is more a grosser form of knowledge, right? At this level, if you are at that level, you are going to feel there is a doership. But if you are most on the most subtler level, right? This is like a 14 chapters. Krishna has gone through a lot from the beginning. In the beginning, he was giving clear instruction, like nobody can not act within even for a second. Everybody has to act, and this is how you should act. These are the kind of action you should do, and all these kind of things he was talking. But at this point, he has gone through all these things, and now he's talking about more deeper kind of stuff, right? So he's basically saying this is much more deeper state of realization, right? At one level, somebody is acting, something is being acted upon, and some action is happening, and there is an identity who's acting. So it's tricky in the sense we need to understand the depth of the teaching also, right? Otherwise, if we from this state of being we say, okay, I'm not the doer, then what is going to happen is it is going to create a confusion in the sense of, now if I'm not the doer, then why should I care about doing anything or anything else, right? So it's like on the different level he's suggesting to do different thing. On the level of doership, you should be doing action like these actions are good for you. On that much more deeper level, you can see that these actions are not done by you, right? On that level, you have attained the self-realization, or you have attained the liberation here. So when the self being transcended these three qualities, which are the source of the body, released from birth, death, old age, and attain immortality, right? So he's saying, once the self has realized it, he also realized that I am not the body, and with the body, all these different things that comes, death, old age, pain, all these things, he transcends all of them, knowing very well that I am really separate from them, right? These are the kind of things that has to be realized, not to be understood, I guess. Yeah. So he's saying once the self transcended all these three qualities, he attained the self-realization, immortality, all the things that he was talking from the beginning. Then he says, then Arjuna asked, by how do you recognize who has transcended all these three qualities, right? What is his conduct? How does he goes beyond these three qualities, right? So how do we know who has transcended these three qualities? How does this person act? And how does he go beyond these three qualities, right? So very straightforward question, and the answer is again, the Krishna is like, once somebody transcends these three gunas, or once somebody's attained the self-realization, it's more like he's detached. He's deep down, he's detached from all the things. So it doesn't really matter. This pair of opposites doesn't really matter to him, right? So he's basically just saying the same thing. He neither hates nor desires the absence of all three gunas, in the sense of he doesn't care whether whether the absence and presence of the light or activity or delusions are growing or coming down. He just doesn't care about them. And then he says, he's seated as if indifferent, who is disturbed by the qualities, thinking the qualities are operating, and stands firm and does not waver, right? So it's just like whether he's acting, whether he's in the state of clarity, or whether he's in a state of confusion. In all these states, he's completely firm and detached, right? To whom the pain and pleasure are the same, dwells in the self, stone and the gold are same, loved and unloved are alike, blame and praise is the same, honor and dishonor is the same, friends and the foes are the same. He is said to be the transcending. He is said to transcend the qualities, right? So the person who is completely transcend the quality just doesn't care about these different things. He is still acting on the world. In the world, it seems like he's still acting, but deep down he doesn't really care about all these different things, right? And then how exactly he transcends these qualities? Krishna has already given so many teachings on all the level, right? The knowledge, the meditation, the action, and the devotion, all this knowledge. But it's interesting, he says here, he who serves me with the yoga of unwavering devotion. So he's clearly saying, he's putting devotion much higher than all the other teachings that he has taught. He's saying, he who serves me with unwavering devotion, transcending these qualities, is ready for absorption in the self, in the me, right? And that's it. So very clear, straightforward teaching. The three gunas are basically the cause of all the actions that is happening, and how these three gunas are creating different action. Why do we feel sometimes so much agitated, sometimes so much restless, sometimes so much calm, and sometimes so much confused, and all these things. this is natural. This is what he's saying. Basically, this is natural. This is happened by the nature, just like different seasons are coming and going. It's more or less just happening like that, right? And what he's suggesting is that the one should aim to transcend these three qualities, right? One should not get attached to the knowledge and happiness, or so much ambitions and this and that, but ultimately one should focus on transcending all these three qualities.